We all know why we're here. So let me ask you a question then. Why the big secret? Truth seekers, but really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we're knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, truth seekers, but really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, break it down, now can you peep it? They're deceiving all the people. Let me ask you, what's the secret? Misinformation and lies, a devious disguise. They want the EMF blast until our brains is fried. Oh, point their beams in the sky. Oh, it's a movie now. This world is all CGI, their plot is truly foul. But we're here to rise up and bring the real. Time is now, truth seekers, y'all know how I feel. Truth seekers, but really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we're knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, truth seekers, but really the true leaders. Keep it grooving, the movement like two-seaters. Turn it up, we knocking through both speakers. It's time we get the truth from the big secret keepers. Hey, why the big secret?
Welcome. If you were here last week, I know you know we had a amazing show last week with Bishop and Darrell Nicholls, and we're going to talk to him again tonight. If you were there last week, you know we went into plenty much details about his story, how he then began to say it is time to step away and move on to bigger and greater things within his own life when it comes down to the religion, when it gets down to this. So we're going to get into this. I'm Roderick Martin. And, you know, if you, again, have opportunity to get your Bibles out tonight, like I said, we're going to dig deeper than we did last week. And I got a bonus tonight. Possibly some of you will be able to call into the show live and ask some questions yourself. And I'm going to try to set that up, and we're going to see how that works for us as well. So in the meantime, make sure you like this video. We are growing over at Why the Big Secret. So if you find value in the conversation, make sure you like this video today. Do some commenting. Go over to Why the Big Secret. Subscribe to the channel, because we're going to do a part 3 over there. And then next week. Let me show you next week's guest real quickly. We're going to have Reverend Michael Carter is going to be here next week. He's been seen on Ancient Aliens, and so got plenty of books, Extraterrestrials in the Bible. So we're going to get deep in where we're going. So this month is going to be awesome. So in the meantime, let me shut that down. And all right, truth seekers, I want to welcome you tonight. It is Tuesday night. And as you know, we try to be the boldest, baffling, belligerent YouTube channel in the world, creating those captivating conversations that certainly cause controversy. I'm your host tonight, and I'm Roderick Martin. And it's going to be a great one for there. But in the first time, I like to say you could have been anywhere else tonight, but you chose to be right here, right now. And with that being said, I bid you good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in those 24 time zones that this show is airing tonight, because we're out there like that. Now, I'm located in the Jumbo State. This is where those UFOs come out to play. It is a Texas thing, y'all. And if you have not fixed dinner, as I said, we're located in the Central Time Zone. So I'm going to give you a quick recipe, a Texas recipe, and that is that biscuits, some bacon maybe, some syrup, some butter. I know it's not the healthy choices, and like I do that, right? But in the meantime, it'll get you started, get things going from there. So, are you ready? You got questions? I hope you do. If you don't, get some questions, because again, we're going to bonus up to be live tonight from there. So let me shut this down a little bit, and we'll get ready to get the show right on the money. And we do have the bishop here with us tonight. He's already in the studio, so we'll bring him up in just a few moments. And so from there, in that. So let me first welcome the Texas people in the house. If you're in Texas, let me look in the chat, give me a shout out so I know you are here, and we'll definitely go ahead and do that. I know we got our truth seekers from Why the Big Secret is here already. I saw Nicole and a few others, and so if you guys are in the house, let me know. So I know we got Jamaica in the house, I see, and then we got a couple other ones, and so yeah, and we're going to answer a few questions. There was a lot of people that was talking about Psalms, and so we're going to get deeply into that tonight. So we got Texas. Erwin from Texas is here. How you doing? Lufkin, Texas, in the house. East Texas is in the house. Welcome, Scoofle, if that's the way. Rosanna's from Texas as well. And yep, Bacon. Who said Bacon? I said Bacon, and that's what it is. Shelly is in Kansas from there as well. Overland Park, Kansas, Dorothy, Kansas. Turl, Texas in the house, and the home of Jamie Foxx from there. So I want to welcome each one of you from Turl, if you from there as well. Chi-Town is in the house. So I just want to take this time, and again, there was a lot of you who took the time to send me an email on the request of last week's show when I said that we wanted to, hang on a second here, we wanted to get to a point to where we could get some help. Anybody that had stories they wanted to share. So we got a lot of people that was able to do that. So that was pretty cool. And I want to thank each and every one that reached out. Some of you will allow us to come forward and tell your story. So we'll be doing that here live on the show. And like, again, we was able to make some contact with a great number of people. So that's something we can do. So again, contact at whythebigsecret.com is the email address, and that will allow you to reach out directly, share some of your stories. And if you know some people we need to be interviewing, we are going to have Reverend Carter here next week. I said that at the beginning of the show. So that's going to be a great one as well. So we got Tampa in the house, born in Galveston. Okay. Arkansas is in the building. Dominican is in the building. St. Louis is in the building. Vegas is in the house. So we're getting ready to do this. Enough is being said. So that means that everybody who's supposed to be here is here at this moment, because that's what's supposed to happen. So, all right. I'm going to begin with a few questions that you're going to hear me ask the bishop. And we're going to connect the dots a little bit. We're not going to spend a time on last week's conversation. We're going to get into some things. So let me bring him into the show, and we'll kind of go from there. Bishop, what's going on with you today?
Man, I am doing fantastic. I just wanted to thank you again for having me back on the show, and just really enjoying reading the comments from people from last week's show.
Yes,
Just grateful. Thank you so much.
yes. And we had over 50 some thousand views on that video as of today, Bishop, and we definitely had about 5,000 likes. Some people that really liked it. Some really interesting comments that was where as well. And so let me give a shout out. Hang on a second here. There's Nicole. She's one of the truth seekers back in there. So she says, "Welcome back, Bishop," from there as well.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
then we have Sonia in the news. Those are some of the Why the Big Secret people as well, along with everyone else. And so, yeah, so there was a lot of comments. There was a lot of things that were uh, people lives that got touched with your stories in our interview from last time, and it was befitting that why don't we bring some of it home this time, and now that they got to know you and they got to know your backstory, and so we can be a little more specific about a few things today to allow us to kind of get into some of those other conversations and as always, again, I appreciate you being here with us tonight. So we'll get
Oh,
started.
and if you don't mind, I want to give a quick shout out. I saw you called out Rochelle from Kansas. That's my sister. So
Oh,
thank you
see,
for having us. Yeah. Yeah, she's done most of like a lot of this journey when I began. She was like, yeah, she was my kickstand. I mean, we were like this. So a lot of the experiences I've had, it really take her to tell you because some of it is just that amazing. But yeah, so
really.
thank you for being this. She's awesome, yeah, and she could
Well, you know
tell.
what I want to do? We'll make it a moment real quick. I'm gonna text you a private call in number that we'll reveal a little later. Why don't you send this to your sister real quick? Have her to call the number, jump on screen and say hello with us through the audio, and that way we can make it a family affair real quick. And so let me send that to you, and I think that that'll work. But in the meantime, we will get to a few other things here. So I just sent you a text. Have her to call that number. It's gonna screen her automatically, and then I'll bring her into the call with us, and she can just kind of let us quickly know what it's like being the sister, and
It,
from her perspective, what was going on real quick as well. So, but yeah, so there was a lot of people that definitely was touched by some of the stories and things that you told. I think again, I got a lot of emails from people that said that they had their experiences, they resonated with the story, and that was one of the things that really touched the entire conversation of how many people were struggling with different situations and scenarios when it comes down to this phenomena or this the Christian connection, or not even Christian. Let's use the word religion because it can be any religion that they are, and from there. And so we will be doing that as well. And so, with that being said, I think we have the greatness of your sister coming on board here. So let me check. And again, tonight I'm gonna give you guys an opportunity. Some of you will be able to call in and ask any questions that you would like, and we're going to do that. So would that be all right with you tonight as well?
I'm certainly good with it. Absolutely. And
Okay.
and I would echo what you had just said. I've been really um, a bit surprised about the response because I really was expecting, anticipating some kickback and some pushback. But I've been getting private messages. I've been getting people joining me on my Facebook and getting comments there. And they had been overwhelmingly, surprisingly positive and supportive, and other people sharing that they've had similar experiences. So I, it's really, it's far from what I anticipated.
Right.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
I have your sister. We have Shelly is on. Oh yeah, you're live now. So go ahead. You're live, and you guys can. He now can officially do it live, and we're here. So go ahead.
Oh, I can't hear her.
You can't hear her.
No.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me see if we need to. Uh-oh. I can hear her, but you can't hear her. All right. What about the audience? Do y'all hear his sister talking? If not, I'm gonna have to change the system up a little bit, and we'll see if we can try it again. But yeah, okay. Go ahead. Say anything else, Shirley, again for me.
Maybe it's just me.
Okay, so no one hears you, Shelly. So here's what I'm gonna do. But me. So I'm gonna switch it to another system, and then I'll have him alert you to call back, and then we'll do that. So I'm glad we did the test because we
Good. Yeah, because I thought I had pretty good ear sight.
no, but you know how you see all them no, everybody's like no.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna do that. So I'm gonna hang up, and then I'm gonna reset it, and then you can call back, and he'll let you know. Call back in a few minutes.
All right.
Okay? All right. So we're gonna drop that call. Well, yeah. So why don't you, while I set this up, then you could. I'm gonna do that, and then you could, just talk to the audience. Tell them a little bit. One of the stories with you and your sister, and that'll give me a few minutes to set this up. So.
We got some stories. Again, I kind of shared last week that she was also like early on when I had one of my first experiences with this UAP aerial phenomenon. She was in the house when I went and grabbed everybody, my family. We came outside and we saw what we saw. But then even there, as it kind of relates to now, years later, in this as I was going through this transition, she and I were kind of traveling like hip to hip. So when I first went out to, I think I had mentioned that amongst the other things, I started getting these words in my sleep at the middle of the night. And one of the first words I got was the word, I can say it now, Merkaba. I didn't know how to say it. But when I shared it with her in a conversation a few weeks later, I told her about it and she did some research. And so she called me back and she says, well, I don't know what that Merca thing is that you're talking about, but there's a guy that's going to be talking about it in Los Angeles. His name is Drunvalo Melchizedek. And that's where I learned about the Merkaba. But and from that point forward, she became a part of all of my travel.
Thank you for calling Call-In Studios host and call screener line. Please enter your show or meeting number and press pound.
We can. All right.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
6-digit PIN number. I don't know if Roderick intended us to hear all that, but at any rate, she's been there from the beginning, and she would joke that there've been many.
Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-In Studio web interface.
There we go. Yeah, we can hear all that, Roderick, but I don't know if Roderick can hear me right now. Okay.
All right. So I think did you hear all that technical jargon?
Yes, we did.
All right. Well, hey, we're gonna see now. All right. So have her to call. Oh, is she? Someone else already called here from Kansas City. Is that where she is now?
Yes.
Okay. So let's see what we got here. All right. Okay. So testing. Okay. How we good?
1, 2, 3.
Can y'all hear her?
Yes, I can hear her.
All right. There we go. We live. Go ahead.
You're choppy.
Okay. Well, again, thank you. And thanks for going through that trauma. But I just want to put one take. I know a lot of people are like, how does he put alien or extraterrestrial life in with his ministry? And years ago, I call him Teddy. We kind of said that the need for spirituality outgrew religion. Not that religion wasn't important or isn't important, but spirituality, things beyond within the 66 book of the Bible took precedent. And I want you to ask him a question, and I'll let him explain. But one experience we had where we manifested something when we were out in LA. And we were at a conference. Stephen Greer, which I know you've talked a lot about in some of your previous podcasts, was somebody we wanted to meet, but he was kind of untouchable. And so there was a moment where we manifested a meeting, not so much with Stephen Greer, but with his bodyguards. And you remember that, Teddy? Of course you do.
Yeah.
So why don't you share that story? Because I just think it's a real cool story, not just from what we learned from him, but also that if you have faith, that you can materialize things, you can manifest things. And we have seen that so many times. It's almost comical when we travel together. It's just like things just happen.
Yeah, actually, when we're traveling, sister, she knows we joke because we have these moments where she says, I'm Neo and she's Trinity. And it's just crazy. And to the point when she's talking there, I mean, that weekend was just amazing. We had several, but I would just think about something. And I said, well, I'd like to talk to Stephen Greer because I wanted more information. But there's all these people around him and everything, and he's off signing autographs and things. And I really wanted to talk to Stephen Greer himself. I just wanted to exchange some information because that's what we're after, the truth. And so I ended up in the conversation with this big, tall guy, big and buff, and it was his bodyguard. And so we just had a sideline conversation away from the crowd, and we just hit it off. And then he kind of opens up his iPad, and he's showing us these pictures. I think we may have been amongst the first people, because this was before Stephen Greer even showed it. It was this little 6-inch alien that some of the people had already studied. And he showed us that, and he says, we're going to be releasing that. He wouldn't let us take a picture or anything of it, but he says, here's some stuff that's coming. He showed us Bijou, the other little etheric alien that Stephen Greer had manifest when he does these channeling, his CE5 protocols. And he just showed us so many things that, again, from my experience, and when you see it with your own eyes and you're getting the story in your own ear, now you got to, you just really can't dismiss it because it's right here in front of your face and you're getting it from the people who were there, And so we had moments like that. Even that weekend, I remember I said, because I like kicking it with Giorgio. And I remember, and so because I hadn't seen him all day. And so I said to my sister, I said, sis, I ain't seen Giorgio. And of course, 3 seconds later, he comes walking around the corner, and that whole weekend was just like that. Just you think it, and there it is. Am I right, sis?
Yeah. So my point is sometimes it doesn't have to be this or that, while you're juggling these, soap bubbles in the air. Sometimes your faith can manifest to bring you more knowledge that some people would say, like you say, is forbidden. But why? And I just seen it happen so many times that it's because of our faith. It's like we want the truth, and you'll see it manifest and come about. And we don't believe in coincidence. There's no such thing. So it just happened too many times.
Yeah, it gets to the point when you say our faith and our belief system. I could give you several examples of things that were just phenomenal. But you almost get into the portion of, even the Bible, they talk about how there was this wrestling. I think it was Jeremiah that was wrestling with some entity. He's wrestling with something. But it wasn't like a physical human being, but he wrestled with an angel, is what the scripture says. And to the point that he got injured. Now he was wrestling with something or someone, and it's hard to explain it, but it brings into the question maybe of the metaphysical aspect of faith and reality, and maybe the things that we can perceive and the things that we can't perceive, And so when you get to the point where you can, if you got faith for it, or stepping out in faith or belief, Bruce Lipton's biology of belief, whatever you want to call it, David Wilcock would probably call this the divine matrix.
Right.
I think even for myself, Akashically, the Akashic record is, people learn how to read them and things. Even biblically, there's a hint about what that is or what that place is, whether it be the Hall of Records or the Book of Life and Death, this place of knowing where information is, and it's got past, present, and history, and you can just see things. And I'll just share this one story. And I think I told my sister about it, but several years ago, I was out taking a walk with my girlfriend then, and we would go to the Metro Park, and we would just go there, and it's like there's a 2 mile, a 3 mile, and a 4 mile trail, and we were walking the 4 mile trail. And when we got there, she had drove in that particular occasion. And so before we started our walk, she gave me her car key because she didn't want to lose it, and she didn't have any pockets. And I didn't have pockets, but I didn't want it to fall in my pocket. So I tied it to in between one of my shoestrings on my shoe. And so we started our walk. And then we, when the walk was over and we get back to the car, I looked down to my shoe, and guess what? No car key. So we're trying to figure what are we going to do. It was just about to start getting dark. I said, well, we can call a locksmith or whatever. I searched everywhere. We didn't find it. She says, well, there's still a little bit of light left. We can walk the trail and see if we can find it. But what are the odds you're going to find a car key on a 4-mile trail? Now, I told her before we started, I think instead of starting at the beginning, the way that we started, I said, I think if we go backwards in reverse, I think about a mile back, it's there. She's like, how would you know that? How could you even know? You don't even know when you lost it. How would you even think that? She says, no. So we went along, and as she kind of suggested, we began the whole trail. I had my camera out, and I'm using my flashlight at this point just to try to see, because it was dark by the time we got about a mile and a half into the trail. And as long story short, we got to another place. We were about 3 miles into the walk, and it was in the fall, and there were leaves and stuff all over the ground. It was a dirt trail. And so we knew it was very likely we were going to find it. Somebody could have kicked it off, or anybody could have stepped on it or picked it up and put it in their pocket. But as we were walking, we got to that 3rd mile, and just something just hit me. I just said, I grabbed her hand and said, hold on, wait a minute. And I said, let's go back. And we walked back another 2 or 3 feet. And she's looking around. What do you see? See nothing. I kicked over a leaf. There was a couple of leaves. You couldn't see it. I kicked over a couple of leaves, and there it was under those leaves. It just blew her away. It even blew me away. But it's that type of connection that you can have with things. And I really can't explain it. But you do get this kind of knowing where you have these extraordinary moments where I don't know how you get in that space, but they do happen. They do happen, and extraordinary, amazing things happen. And like for me, just kind of getting out and following spirit and getting out of the main lane. And even to my sister's credit, she was a devout Jehovah's Witness, and I mean a good one. I thought she was more Christian than most Christians I knew, because she was out knocking on the doors, passing out tracts, building up Kingdom Hall temples and things like that. And it's been a journey for her as well. So we both kind of going through and kind of shedding some of that conditioning and open our minds. And then we're having these amazing experiences that we still have that connection. But as she said, when you get to the point where your spirituality outgrows your religion, and it's like coming out of a box, and it's not that you're leaving your spiritual or your religious beliefs behind, but for me, it's been expansion.
Okay, well.
And I think even with there was a moment where 10 years ago, at least, probably more closer to 15 years ago, our Dogon friend, Big Bye, had suggested that, he do a Bayou Ali reading. And I remember, and that was Master Naba then, no?
Actually, the person that did mine,
anyway,
Irita,
but I do remember then when you asked them about, I'm going through this battle with my religion and pursuing outside, do I just quit Christianity? And he's like, no, emphatically. He's got it on tape, where this guy's, because you still need that foundation. And so I guess I'm just glad to say, because there's people out there who have Christian beliefs that are fighting it. And I think for us, anyway, it's kind of, you have to find an acceptance between that foundation that's been laid. You believe. Just keep that belief, keep that faith, and build on that faith, that there's so much more we don't know. It's that forbidden knowledge we don't know. But if we still have that foundation of faith, whether it came through Christianity or maybe we were agnostic, we believed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And build on that.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's the sister. And we appreciate you coming on, and we'll get ready to get some things here, and we'll get some of the other callers in here in a little bit, so we know the test works. So I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your stories and family time with us. Okay.
All right.
You appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. All right. So, we're going to, I got some questions, and then, like I said, we'll get some of you all to begin to come up. If you want to have some questions, we'll let you guys do that in a little bit as well. And hang on, I think I hung all that up. So yeah, let's do that. All right. So Darrell, here's the deal. most people think that there is a distinction between in the Bible that extraterrestrial stories are either beings or either angels or either demons. You hear that all the time. So what do we know about the angels that was cast down and looked upon the daughters of men? How does this relate to giving us a distinction of who is we're referring to in the Bible?
Well, in my experience in the churches anyway, when we exegete, we kind of dissect that text, we quickly just ascribe that to these were just fallen angels. And we kind of really just kind of dismiss it as okay, they were good angels and there were bad angels. And there was a battle in heaven, and Michael and his angels won, and they cast Satan and 1/3 of the angels to the earth. And we kind of really assume that, okay, those were the angels, the fallen angels that looked upon the daughters of men. But now you look at that because that's generally the context in which the Bible is read, and we don't really, most people don't go much further past that, and in the pulpit really they don't go much further past it because it gets difficult to explain. Because we know that the scriptures say they refer to them as the Nephilim. But now obviously if they looked upon the daughters of men and they took whom they wanted and they had children, then there had to have been a physical aspect to whatever this entity or this body or this angel is, which doesn't fit the description of what we normally perceive as an angel. Angels are really kind of spirit bodies. We don't really see them. They don't have physical characteristics, and they certainly don't go around procreating with man. But then the Bible does go on to say that, there were, and they created these other people, men of renown, that as they mingled, that they created a race, and, some of them were giants, the men of renown. So these became like the demagogues. So I guess what we do know, number one, biblically, they're referred to as the Nephilim, and then there was the Elohim before them, those who from the heavens came, contributed to, Zechariah's ascensions and the translations from the Sumerian tablets. We have that written in stone, thousands of years old. So we know that they exist, that they have the ability to procreate somehow with the daughters of men, and that there was some type of a conflict. And we go on further into the Bible, we say that it was because of this creation that God was dissatisfied with what had become of it, and this became the precursor for why there was a flood, because he wanted to wipe them all away. But then the scripture also says that in those days there were giants in the land before and after the flood. So when we say after the flood, that little part there tells me, okay, didn't get them all. They're still here. And they never did get them all. And so that's why it's still the possibility that whatever we describe the Nephilim, whatever they are or were, they've been procreating here, and their offspring is still here. And so it's entirely possible, while we could have these other hybrid forms of whatever the offspring of these things were. And just for an example, if I were to mention King Og, who's mentioned, I think, in the book of Deuteronomy, and they kind of ascribe him because one of the distinguishing characteristics about him in the Bible, anyway, of all the things that they could say about King Og, it mentions how big his bed was. His bed, and they have a different measurement that's listed in the Bible, but it's the equivalent. It was 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. 13 feet long.
So let me ask you this then. Take me back, and then we'll get into it a little deeper here. But these stories, the way you're describing things now, and there was a couple of people in the chat was like, where can they find this in the Bible? But take me back to a normal Sunday. Would this be skipped over, or how would you have, if you were preaching this at the time, would you take that in consideration when you're talking to the congregation? I'm going to talk about giants, but yet the stories that we have all been raised on,
No, I seriously doubt it would be a very avant-garde minister to take that on from a scriptural standpoint and to use it as a sermon, because there's just so many unknowns in it, and they're not explainable, and they're not readily explained in the Bible. It doesn't tell you, in the context of those 66 books. That gives you some hints that there's something else very peculiar going on here. We know that David slew Goliath, for example, the story, little shepherd boy, and he takes out this big giant.
Right.
But people ask, well, it's a great story how a shepherd boy with nothing more than a slingshot, and a belief in God slew such an adversary that, all of the rest of the army and all of Israel, nobody else could slay him except this little sheep boy. And so it's a wonderful story in that respect, but that's where you stop. We tell the David story, which is a glorious story, a magnificent story about what God can do with a person with disbelief, a little shepherd herder. But when you look at Goliath, not many people are going to talk about the fact that Goliath had brothers and sisters. That maybe Goliath wasn't the only giant. When you start asking questions like that, well, who was Goliath? And then you begin to trace the story of Goliath, and you see that he's kind of related to this King Og. And we know that King Og, what does the Bible say about King Og? Well, he had a bed that was 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. He was a giant, and so now you start connecting the other dots when you begin to ask the question behind the question. That's where you get into this space where you have to explore, because the Bible in that respect, it gives you answers that don't answer, explanations that don't explain, and so that's where you have to, you got to step out and kind of start exploring other things that are outside biblical texts that you can find resources for.
And refresh my memory, there is some place in the Bible where the king in the Bible described as a giant?
King Og.
King Og, you said, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I can give you the scripture that let's see.
Yeah, for the audience. Yeah, they may want to look it up. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you're looking it up. Okay, great. All right. Yeah. So, I think though, and of course, scientists and people have already found giant bones and all of these things, and still in history, we just deny some of these things that we have found. And it's just kind of, it's pretty interesting when it gets down to this. And like I said, it's on one end, we still have people go to church every Sunday today, and there's just things in this good book that will probably be just totally, don't go there, don't go into that area. And that surprises me enough, because once again, with all of this disclosure and the things that are happening, and we'll get into it in a little bit, because I think even the Vatican, and we'll talk about that later on in the show, where the Pope and all these people are now acknowledging some type of extraterrestrial, what they do all these things and work with them. And I remember a story that popped up. It said, the Pope said, yeah, we will treat them as though we all have the same God. So we'll get into that in a minute, a little bit. So
can I answer that question, related to King Og? So I'll give people the scripture. If you go to Deuteronomy, 3rd chapter, 11th verse, it says, for only King Og of Bashan remained of the remnants of giants.
Okay.
Says, behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. It was not in Rabbath for the children of Ammon. It was with a question mark. So 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits was the breadth of it, after the cubit of a man. Now, a cubit is about 18 inches. So that would make the bed about 13 and a half feet long and 6 feet wide. So, and that's in the Bible. So he talks about he was
a big bed.
Yeah.
Big bed, or he had a big family or a big, harem there. He said, everybody come and get in the bed with me.
And the scripture specifically says that he was a remnant of the giants.
All right. So I got a couple other questions here then. We talked about it. I guess you already kind of went into the Nephilim, and that we know many of them and their names in the Bible, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So now,
for people that know, that was in Genesis 6th chapter, 4th verse. And that scripture says that there were giants in the earth in those days. And after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And that was in Genesis 6, chapter 4th verse. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, meaning before and after the flood is the reference.
Okay, so and then we're gonna let some callers come in a minute. I'm gonna put the number on the screen and let a few of you call. If too many of you call, it is like a toll line. It does cost a little bit, but if you guys want to, donate to the channel, you can do it through YouTube. But Cash App down there come quicker than if we need to re-up this toll meter because it only takes so many calls. But Psalms, we're gonna get it. There were some people that post comments from last week, right? And I thought it was for us to handle. So I'm gonna read this first, just kind of a few lines, and then we'll get into it. It says, even your law says, yea, we're gods, in reference to Psalms, not the law. Jesus is obviously quoting from a scripture that we don't have in our Bible. And by the way, of course, David did not write all the Psalms, right? What is this? Okay, Psalms, yea, we are gods. So I'm just kind of hitting around here that sounds like this is more of a poem versus law.
Yes.
And most people think the poems, I'm sorry, when we talk about Psalms and is the word, but actually it's poetry. Okay. So can you give me some distinction between that? Because I think you might have read them, I read them, and maybe some people need a little clarification on that.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up, because the comments from the previous interview when I said that even here we even have Jesus himself quoting a scripture that we can't find the reference for in the Bible. And we got some Bible scholars, that really challenged. They say, hey, check this out. They didn't challenge, but they say, by the way, have you seen Psalms 82? And so I said that, and I didn't want to, because we're going to get a layer or two deeper, because most people don't. But number one is profound that we got Jesus when they're actually challenging him, when he says that he's the Son of God, he's the Son of Man, and they blasphemy. And his counterpoint to them, to the Sadducees and the Pharisees, because they're about to crucify him, because now they're trying to say, blasphemy for you even saying something like that. And Jesus' counterpoint to them is it not written in your law that ye are gods? So I am aware that it is written in Psalms as well. I think that was Psalms 82 in the book of Psalms. But the issue with that is it is Psalms 82. But Psalms is basically a collection of poems. It's music and poetry. And actually, what a lot of people don't know, which I didn't want to get too technical, is because even out of I think there's nearly 300 Psalms, and most people just assume that David wrote them. But David wrote maybe one half of those Psalms, roughly 150. The Psalms that we're talking about here that's thinking that Jesus quoted, actually, that was written by another gentleman. His name was Aesop. There were 7 different people who wrote what is now in the book of Psalms. So it was Aesop who wrote that, and Aesop in the first century, he was actually a musician or a singer that sang at the temple, at the first temple. So Jesus is not going to be quoting a singer. He's not quoting a poet, because that's not the law. He said, is it not written in your law? The law is considered basically the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, the Pentateuch. So, and you don't find that. That's the law. The law is like the 613 commandments, more than just the 10 commandments. There were actually 613 commandments, the law. So my point simply is here, even in this case, you'd have to go to an extant version of a Bible. You'd have to go to there's other texts that are out there, or Masoretic texts that are not part of the King James Version of the Bible, and then it begins to make sense. But so my point simply is you can get stuck in that lane. And again, I was one of those guys too, says, if it's not my Bible, I don't need to know. But I said, and if Jesus is saying something, I want to know, okay, where did he get it from? Because all of these texts were in circulation in his day. There wasn't a book yet. There was not, other than the Pentateuch, the original Septuagint, the first 5 books, the books of Moses. That's what we had. And then we had all of these other writings that occurred. And all these writings were, if you can imagine, if you're in the first century AD, Or just make it, let's go like 200 years before Jesus, and you're walking around. Well, these writings are available, and they're just texts that somebody with wisdom wrote here, somebody wrote there. Some of them showed up years later in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So my point simply is there's this esoteric knowledge, there's this wisdom that's been out there floating around, and a lot of them you don't find in those 66 books that became what we call the King James Version of the Bible. And even, to another point, it's a nice little segue I had shared with you, Roderick, but, and again, this is not an indictment against religion or religious beliefs or any particular religion. It's just the reality of what we have. But here we're at a time now, if we just go back to, that time when AD and BC were split at the advent of Jesus Christ. He split BC into AD. The time itself is now measured by his adventure here. But since then, with one message, one God, one faith, one religion, but today we actually live in a world where we have over 400 different denominations, over 400. And many of them fighting against each other, saying that I have the only absolute truth. I was raised in a Pentecostal, became a Southern Baptist convention, and ended up non-denominational. My sister was raised just like I was, but after college, she kind of went her own way and she became Jehovah's Witness. My best friend in life was Jehovah's Witness from the time we were very small until later he decided, in his adult years, to go someplace else. But even in the Roman Catholic Church, what we read and how we read it is a large function of the institutions that that we're falling up under. Or maybe it's just a function of where you were raised. What did your parents believe? And that's what you became until you actually had the decision, made a conscious decision to move it. But my point really is that now with 400 different denominations, and like if I were to look at the Roman Catholic Church, they have actually 7 more books in their Bible in the Roman Catholic Church than you find in the Protestant Bible. 7 different books that were in circulation way back here in antiquity. And there are actually 14 books that are not in anybody, not in certainly the King James Version or the Protestant Bible, but these were texts that were extant. And so, for example, it could be that you can access one of those books and you can find where some of these references that you can find in King James, you can't find it. You can find an allusion to it, but you can't find where that quote was taken until you go out inside and you start looking at some of those texts. And there's all kinds of really great nuggets of wisdom and knowledge that are in those other books. And that's my point. And then we need to stop, really, particularly my criticism of the church was the lack of diversity in it, at least in the spheres that I was in, because I didn't see my Native American brothers and sisters. In some cases, I didn't see, my more militant Afrocentric brothers and sisters. And I understand it. There was a comment, I just saw somebody had written a comment in there, is how could you use the Bible from the same people who used the Bible to enslave us? And I've wrestled with hard conversations with like that from people. And this doesn't get to the alien thing, but my point simply is I get it. And I would say that with these 400 denominations, I can easily see how man got their hand on it and manipulated it and used it for something other than for what it was intended to be. And that's tragic. But we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because the wisdom and the knowledge is still valid, although we've misapplied it and misused it because of our lack of knowledge, our ignorance. And I mean that in a not an offensive way. Ignorance is simply we just don't know, and we don't know that we don't know. But the problem is we think we know.
I know, right? You don't. And the ones who know don't tell, and the room on that deal.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna bring up 2 things. We'll get into a little Vatican talk here, and then I'm gonna see if there's a few people in the audience that would like to call in and ask you a question. And if you are in the audience and you do want to call in and ask the question, put yay, put I got a question in the thing, and let me know if that's what y'all may be interested in, and I'll put the number up and we can take some callers, and we'll do that in just a few moments. But in the meantime, let me bring up a little information here, something I found. This was the Vatican says that the scientists believe God and aliens is okay. So they have an astronomer says there's no conflict between believing in God and the possibility of extraterrestrial brothers, perhaps, more evolved than humans. So this is the Vatican. Now we know that they are the big secret keepers when it comes down to all of this stuff. And of course, I got another screenshot. I'll bring them both up here. And Pope Francis said he would definitely baptize aliens if they asked him to. I thought that was kind of like, really? My Scooby Doo was like, "Roo, roo." So yeah. So like, really? But if this kind of mandate comes down from the Vatican itself, that will really affect the whole religious ecosystem. Because I already know that some time ago, the Vatican summoned up scientists all over the world, different people that are, scholars and different people they was bringing in, doing research of saying, hey, what can we think about when it comes down to this extraterrestrial? So something is brewing, something is coming, whether they're already here, whether it's going to be an announcement, the unavoidable, how are these things? So what do you think about that? In the Vatican themselves, and if they take a stance that they're trying to subtly take, that changes the world.
It really would have a substantial impact, and I can't remember what year it was when I first had read where the Vatican had made a pronouncement about, we don't think it outside God's providence that he would have other created beings elsewhere. And I said, that's coming from the Vatican. And actually, I have here, there's a pamphlet. Is it backwards? It probably is.
No, it's good. No.
Yeah,
No,
intelligent life in the universe. Intelligent life in the universe, Catholic belief, and the search for extraterrestrial intelligent life. And this is by Guy Consolamagna. And he is the senior, I believe, the senior astrologist for the Vatican. And this is a 50-page pamphlet. And so even at that level, at the highest, and in terms of, if you were going to look at Roman Catholicism, you're at the site. This is the seat of the Holy See, the most influential religious body in the Catholic tradition. And they've got their own astronomers. We've got the popes even coming out making statements as recent as last year about extraterrestrials. And that's why I got a real kick out of it, because in an interview, they asked Pope Francis that he would baptize an alien. And his response was, well, yes, if they wanted, only if they wanted me to.
Only if they wanted to.
So my point is even from that standpoint, we got some of our religious institutions, at least, tipping a hat to the notion of extraterrestrial beings. And even at the hearings we had last year, or no, that was earlier this year.
Right.
The first hearings that we've had on the Senate was the Senate subcommittee hearing on UAP phenomenon. The first one in 50 years since Roswell. So very well could be that culturally they're trying to get us acclimated to the notion, to kind of help expand our blinders and saying, well, there are things out there, and they're just maybe kind of testing the water with us, is the kind of the sense that I get. The bigger issue, I think, of why we don't have disclosure in that regard, and I think Stephen Greer and others are absolutely right, is because it presents a geopolitical problem.
Well, yeah, I think it does. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the way that we conduct business here on this planet, everything really kind of boils down to money, unfortunately. And there's only three kinds of money on the planet. Paper currencies isn't real money. They say that the real money is gold, silver, and oil. And now we've got a planet that basically the price of all goods and services and the way that we do business across continents and countries is based upon the price of a gallon of oil, gasoline. So if we start talking about UFOs and UAPs and aliens, and we actually conclusively have evidence and discover or contact with beings and say that they are distance travelers, there's interdimensional or extra dimensional, but say if they're coming from Sirius A, or are they coming from Mars? I don't know. But how do they get there from here? And when people begin to ask that question and the answer comes up that there's a form of energy that's free, that Nikola Tesla was right, perhaps, and we don't have to pay for anything. We can just pull it out of the ether. So once you get to the point where you don't have to, you got a bunch of consumers that are no longer buying petroleum products for gasoline. Now, what happens to the whole world, or the whole global economy? It just falls apart. So I think part of the problem that they have with disclosure is that they don't have a geopolitical answer of how do you solve the problem when people don't have to buy gasoline and you don't have to pay electric bills. And I think until they discover a solution, then they're going to get suppressed. I think that's in reality, if some of you are familiar with the testimony of Phil Schneider, who actually says that he was and I find him highly credible, that he was actually one of the people, I think it was a geologist, who actually battled with aliens in Dulce, New Mexico. I never even heard of Black Beret, but supposedly 26 Black Beret got killed that day. But people are trying to suppress that technology. And there's other people who had water for gas and things like that, free energy. And they seem to catch lead poisoning or commit suicide before they can bring those things to market. So my point simply is yes, I think we're creeping toward more open acknowledgement of phenomena we can't explain.
Gotcha.
But we just don't have a solution. Now, once that technology has officially been back engineered, now what do we do with the whole world that's based on an economy of capitalism? And the problem with capitalism is you got to have capital.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, a lot of people say money ain't everything. And I agree with them. It's not everything. And but I rate it right up there with oxygen.
There you go. Yeah, it does rank way up there.
Way up there. So that's how we're going to do it. All right. So I'm getting ready to put a number on the screen for any of you want to call in. And here's the rules. You're going to hear the phone, since I don't have a physical person screening the calls, and I eventually would do that. The screen system is going to do it itself. If you do not leave while you're calling, so I can make sure it's appropriate, you will not get in. I will drop you, block it, all of the good stuff that comes along with it. But if you are so kind, and make sure you mention it, and make sure you stay on point of what you put in there. Otherwise, we will drop it, all those good things. You're free to ask what you want within the curiosity that you will have. Now, we're not here ridiculing anything else, but if you have a issue and you think, you know, you want to blast, you know, the deal, this is not the place to do that. We just want people who need answers, people who he can help, and people want to add to the conversation and everything else. Keep your questions one to a question, so we don't need the ands and question. And I have another one and another one, because there may be a lot of people that have a few questions and everything else. And if you're finding value from some of this stuff, definitely show your love. And like I said, you can, you know, do this through YouTube or the Cash App and everything else, because again, this particular system I set up today purposely so that we can take some calls. Cash App is right there at the bottom of the screen. You guys can see it where it says the $ why the big secret. So if you want to look at it there, and it's right on the bottom of the screen. So, but again,
if I just could say one thing, Roderick, before you get, it looks like we got Billy Carson in the chat.
I don't know. It may be, it may not be.
But I just want to say,
and if he is, then we'll bring him in. He may can do a cameo. I'll send him a link and hop up in here with us if he like. Now I'll put him on.
Well, I share with you because, like, for the last 3 or 4 years, when I go to Los Angeles to the Conscious Life Expo, Billy Carson was the only person that I really said I was drawn to. I'm going there is just to meet Billy because I wanted to have a conversation.
Oh, okay. Well,
but that he's been on my radar for a minute because I appreciate his work and what he's doing and the difference he's making in that space. But I really wanted to just take just a minute before we open it up and just to really thank you again and thank your audience for really just a warm reception and your comments. It's almost incredible to think, you know, because this has been a rough transition, and I didn't know what I was risking at exposing myself to this conversation. And I anticipated a lot of ridicule, frankly.
But I mean,
So it's been, the response has been overwhelming, and I appreciate getting even calls from other ministers and people coming up through faith, just acknowledging, that they appreciate the fact that it's coming out there and that we're kind of opening up the dialogue, and they really kind of embrace me, which really kind of makes me feel a lot more comfortable and confident that I'm so glad and fortunate to be here, and to share and to get that type of feedback. Nothing but love. But I just want to say thank you so much to your listeners.
Well, we're good. Get up in here and let me block a couple of people here. Boy, I tell you, some people just want attention, and I'm gonna give them some attention real quick. All right, so we're gonna open the phone lines up. Y'all heard the rules, and greatness of Billy, and of course, it's always the blessing of being here and him allowing us to serve the audience as well. And if he does have time to pop in, he'll let me know. He'll hit me on the Batman line, but in the meantime, his presence out there. All right, so TikTok. So we're going to open up the calls. Remember, make sure when we screen them, you put in your information so that the system will hear it. Bam, it is on the screen now. We got 7 open lines, so you can get up in there and you can call, and we will do that. So there it is, 272-222-TALK if you got something you want answered. Now, we only have time for one bishop, so we don't need any other preaching tonight if you're getting up here to preach. So that's not happening tonight. All right, so there you go. Oh, we got some callers coming in, some from Dallas, looks like, and the screening is going through, and once we got a couple of them in queue right now, so that's a good thing. We got another one. Well, one hung up. That's fine.
I wonder if Dallas wants to know what kind of syrup you use on them biscuits and bacon.
I know, right?
That sounds
Ain't
good.
your mama, baby. Ain't your mama.
Yeah, all right.
That we're going to be using from that. Yeah, they skipped it. Yeah, you cannot. If you skip that screen calling, it is going to not let you in. So I'm not. Some of you are doing it right now. If you cannot tell us what you want, it's not going down. I'm just sorry to tell you. And so it's there for a reason, and it's going to ask you, and then what it's going to do is take your words, and it's going to put it across the screen of what you said and anything else. So definitely, if you want to have a word, they're calling in, but a lot of them skipping the screening. So that tells me either two things: they either have trying to do some trapping here or whatever. Okay, so we have someone, and I'm gonna bring him up. It's Glenn. He says he want to talk about the music guy YouTube that with Eugene Americas and the casting was talking about the reptilian and any little direction on the concourse of the world. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, say that again, please.
He says that Glenn Parker. He said I want to talk about it's, and this is the computer system doing this, and it could be. He said, I'm going to talk about YouTube, but I'm going to let him come on up and say this. So I'm going to bring him in. Then we got Leroy. You're going to be up next. And then we got a couple other people here. So let's do this real quick. Let's bring into the conversation. So, all right, Glenn, you are live. What is your question?
Afternoon, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Go ahead.
Good. Briefly, I was looking at one of the Gaia YouTube that Regina Meredith, she was hosting, and she had Lynn Cassins on, talking very much like what we're talking about, but based on the whole really religious, galactic, and reptilian influence on our history, on our planet, and how our planet and solar system formed. A lot of what Billy Carson talks about, what is going back with the wars of, the humans and reptilian races, and to pinpoint it is how this interpret our religious beliefs today. Why are we so worshiping animals? Who are we worshiping? Why are we worshiping them? And what is the history of that?
All right.
Everything in a nutshell.
All right. So
is there a question do I have?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so that's his
question.
question.
Is there a question with that?
Yeah, is there a question with that?
The basic question is, how real is this, and how does this manifest into our real lives, with history, with religion, with who we are as a people of all races? And why are we so different? Are we here? Are we a bunch of refugees left over from some ancient galactic war?
All right, so I'm going to.
Or no?
All right, so I'm gonna let him.
Done.
All right, I appreciate you, Glenn, and he's
Yes,
going to
sir.
answer that question, and I'm going to bring some other people up in a little bit here. If you need
Okay.
anything
I'm
else,
sorry. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot going on right now.
That's all right.
Thank you,
That's all right.
gentlemen.
Thank you. All right, so do you want to?
Can I hang up?
Yeah, go ahead. I got you. You want to take a stab at that one, or?
Yeah, yes, I can. And again, we're getting out to an area where there's a lot of opinions, and a lot of conjecture, and very little absolute, verifiable, factual proof.
Okay.
So I would preface this with saying this, a small little quote. I think it's a Arabic quote, but it says, "He who knows not and knows not that he knows not is asleep."
Okay.
Waking. Said, "He who knows not and knows that he knows not is a student. You can teach him." And then there's he who knows, but he doesn't know that he knows, and you can wake them. And then there's the person, he who knows and knows that he knows, you can follow them. So to your question, I'm going to say that I'm in that first category. I don't know, but I do know that I don't know, as opposed to other people that are out there that are telling you that they know and they know they know. I don't know that for a fact like they do. It's not that knowable. So if there are reptilians that are controlling an agenda, if you go back and look at the work of Bob Dean, who would say there are as many as 54 different alien species here on the planet.
Okay.
And you believe his credibility, the things that he brings to it, or maybe all of the above are true. And maybe there's several things going on all at the same time with different entities with different agendas, which is probably more than likely the truth. But I will say this, because I can't really answer your question other than tell you an opinion. But one thing that I have heard in that space, and it was a gentleman, George Green, who released, some of you may have heard about it several years ago, 10, 12 years ago. He did a video on Project Camelot. And his project was called The Big Picture, the interview series.
Okay.
And he said he was in contact with the Pleiadians, one of the Pleiadian commanders. And again, I can't prove this, but I like what he said, because if it is true, I found it encouraging. But he said that what the Pleiadians, as opposed to the reptilians, the Pleiadians, his claim was that they said that what's going on in this little blue marble Earth is the best show on this quadrant of the galaxy. And they said that because he says that we have something else that most created beings don't have. And he said that we have that spark of divinity. We've got that spark of God in us. And he said, and apparently they don't, it's rare. So people coming from galaxies or whatever around to see us, and they look at us as royalty. But tragically, they also look at how cruel we can be toward one another. And so we're a bit of a dichotomy, a bit of an oxymoron. But I like what he had to say in terms of the agendas and what the perspective might be of other species, if there are other ones out there. I like the idea that we are so special that we were created, a special creation of God, creator, and we're unique throughout the created universe.
All right, Bishop, I'm gonna need your help. The call lines are 20 people all sitting here.
Ooh,
so you're gonna have
okay.
to, when you answer it, bring it quick, because they're asking and they're asking all the questions, and it's hot. The board is hot. And because it is costing me by the minute for them to be here, and they're not really like chipping in on this right now.
Let's get it, bro.
I'm gonna be hanging some of them up anyway. We're like, no, it's costing that's $5, that's $3. But I want them to ask the question. So this one is from Leroy. And I'm gonna bring him up. So Leroy says, got a question. He's just said he want to know, are Black people disconnected from spirituality and consciousness? So I'm gonna let him ask that question. And the rest of you, if your question is okay, I'm just gonna bring you in. I'm not gonna repeat the question. You can do it yourself. All right. Leroy is now with us on the air. Leroy, go ahead.
Yes, how you doing, Mr. Nicholls? It's awesome to be on with you guys. I liked watching you guys and the information that you give out. You're awesome with the knowledge that you give. But my question is, during the slavery days, like on the show, like I know it's just a show, but on Roots, like when he beat him to make him say his name was Toby, the question is when we were beaten and forced to take on the English religion, are Africans, Americans disconnected from the true spirituality of where we actually come from, which is the reason why we're so displaced the way we are, because we're not connected to our original people where we came from?
I'd agree. There is a disconnection. And if you take all of the different tribes, and whether they were Native Americans or Black Indians who were already here versus the ones who came from the Caribbean and from Africa, Portugal, from by way of England, there was a big confusion. It was like our own city of Babel, where we lost everything. But I think that there's, not to offend anybody, I really believe that there's something about melanated people that we have a high capacity to maintain a spiritual connection. And just like even as we went through all of that and slavery and everything else, but it was religion, it was theology, it was our spirituality that enables us to stay together and get stronger and come through it. And I think that as we go forward from here, where they broke some other eggs, some scrambled eggs, but I think we're going to make a wonderful omelet out of it. And we're going to navigate our way through it and kind of regain all that was lost.
All right. Okay. So, all right. Appreciate it. Thank you for calling in, Leroy, and I appreciate you coming in. Okay.
Thank you. Y'all have a blessed evening.
You too.
And thank you. I hope that answers
All
your
right.
question.
So we have another call, and this is from Dallas area, looks like. And so this is, let me see the name here. Henderson, I guess, and they didn't want to say their name, but I'm gonna let them in. But next time, y'all make sure y'all let me know who you are, because we do screen these things. And so we got a few more calls coming in. We got two more lines open, and so let me do that right now. All right, you're live. You're now live on Why the Big Secret. Go ahead.
We got a few more calls today.
Yeah, you want to shut your background off? Go ahead. We're listening to you.
All right,
Okay, I'm gonna mute them out right quick. All right, so you were live, so I just wanted to let you know that if you could came on here we go. We have $9.99. All right, appreciate it. From the greatness of Texas in the house. And so yeah, that'll work. All right, so I'm gonna unmute you again and see if you want to say something. If not, we'll move on to the next caller. And so let's do that right here. Let's try this again, because I know they was listening to us. All right, so you're live.
Hello, testing.
Yeah, go ahead. Testing, working. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hello, testing.
You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
I can hear.
Yes. My name is Dusty Henderson. I'm sorry you didn't. I think it's a back.
You got to turn you can't. You got to turn your backside off, because you don't want to listen to yourself. Yeah.
I did.
All right, go ahead.
You're right, and that's what it was. So, Mr. Darrell, I want to thank you for actually coming on and coming out, because one of the things that you've done for us as a culture and a people, you've made it okay. You have a amazing background in the military, and also having a religious background, and having such compassion, and how you're able to talk to individuals, and I guess your members, because religion is a good thing, because it does set a person's moral compass, and not just exposing so much of the truth at one time, because, even as the scriptures say, seeking you shall find. So if a person isn't quite seeking that, I appreciate you being so gracious with individuals as you're still on your journey. One thing that you did say on the last show, you did a mind projection. You said you were going to go visit someone one day. You were sitting back, and you said, you know what, I'm going to go check on somebody one day. And I've done that several times. And my husband, I think he's kind of like, yeah. But I wanted to hear your position. I actually followed someone, just kind of tried to do it one night, and it actually did happen. The person was in between about to pass, and kind of got messages, and of course they don't use their mouth. And so it's happened several times, and I just wanted to hear your experience and your perception with that.
Hey, thank you so much for the acknowledgement and for the question.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and unmute her out, and then we can keep going. All right, so go ahead and answer that. We got a bunch more waiting on you. Go ahead.
Yeah, astral projection. I'd say it's something that everybody can do. I was just experimenting. This was back in my college days, and this kind of led to the thing where I had that interview where David Wilcock interpreted that experience. but I used to do it really casually. You know, I got pretty good at it. In fact, you know, that was a springboard into some other things, which I got to be able to read Akashic records. And some of you may know, but for a period of about less than a year, but I was one of the readers on Therese Caputo's Long Island Medium, fans of the Long Island Medium webpage. I never charged anybody for a reading or anything like that, but a friend of mine was administrator, and she had some people who had some serious challenges and asked me if I would help them. So my point simply is there's so many things that you can do. The extent of human ability, if you're kind of open-minded and explore it with some degree of sincerity. But I would caution as well, you know, like Paul wrote in the New Testament, you know, all things are possible, but not all things are profitable. So you don't want to go in there because of ego or something like that, because there are things out there that's a lot better than us, and you get trapped out there. And that's another story. But I'm telling you, there was one time where I ran into something out there, and I thought I was kind of cocky. You know, I said, well, you can't beat me. You can't win. What is this? And I thought I'd just blow past it. Meanwhile, I had something else, just the reverse happened. And I never did astral projection without, I always kept the practice. I have a Bible either on my chest or behind my head. And so in that particular case, I was losing ground, and I didn't, you know, it was kind of like a possession about to happen. And so I actually said, you know, the only scripture I knew that it could save me, I was desperate. I said, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you be gone. And in the instant like that, it was over. And it shook me up enough that I didn't do any astral projection for about 18 months. I said, obviously, I'm not ready.
So, you know, I've heard people that said, you know, I've heard stories where people like sleep paralysis and everything else. To let you also call a number, if your number's ended in 4153, you're going to be next. So make sure when I come on in, you turn the backdrop off. Then it's going to be caller ended in 8522, then 6416 and 3422. I know that all of you are in queue, and we'll bring you up in just a few moments. I had people that say that they have experienced either not just a sleep paralysis, but some type of contact at night. And when they screamed out in names of Jesus, well, the entity laughed at them and said, that really don't work. I'm just going to leave because I'm bothering you. I really have had 2 or 3 people that said that. And I thought that was kind of one of those things from there. So we got another caller for you. You got a bunch. They're still coming in. Good. And so caller 4153, I'm about to bring you into the call. That'll give you an opportunity right now to turn off the backdrop, because they can hear us talking until we come in. So, all right. So, all right. You are now live, AK-47. You're live on the air with Why the Big Secret in Bishop Nicholls. Go ahead.
Okay. Nervous. I'm calling in. I want to thank you, first of all. Appreciate you. Second of all, I just want to ask you about the Euphrates River. Since it's drying up, those steps that are going down that they've seen, is those the steps where the angels is chained? And there are videos about people hearing like noises and stuff, like hollers coming from up under there. And I want to know, is that what it means when it says that man will die for what will come up on the earth?
All right. So
that's all I want to say.
I appreciate you calling in, and thank you from there, Bishop. Go ahead and do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with this phenomenon that's happening at the Euphrates River. I am aware that all across the globe we're having these issues with water, and I know even there's skeletons of whales that are now emerging or being revealed on the desert floor. But as far as if on the Euphrates River, if this represents the stairway to hell, I'd have to go and look into that. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good enough. I want to give a shout out to Dusty. Dusty hit us on the cash out with $5, and so that'll give us some few more minutes if we needed to go in because this thing is just running like a meter. But I think it's worth it in people from there. So Dusty, a shout out to you for the cash out. Thank you. Hear from us all. So we got caller number 8522. So, and then 3422. And then we still have, now we got a few open lines, about 4 or 5, if any of you got any calls, but I'm going to go ahead and bring in the next one right now. So we have Sonia from Sonia's, her YouTube channel. And Sonia, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, Roderick. Thanks for taking my call. Hi, Bishop Nicholls. Thanks for being on. I have two questions. So my first question is, you mentioned the late Bill Snyder. I was wondering, do you think he was murdered because of what he knew? Because he definitely knew something. He definitely had the physical scars on his body to prove that something happened to him. I followed his story for a long time, so I definitely don't think he was lying. And then my other question is, do you think there's a breakaway civilization of humans living on another planet? What I mean by that is, do you think aliens or the Greys or whatever took people from this planet decades ago, raised them on another planet? Because if you listen to the Travis Walton story, or if you follow his story, there was human-looking aliens on board that ship with the 4-foot Greys working alongside them. And then I'll take the answer off air.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, that was like professional. She done that before. I'll take the answer off the air. I'm all new to this, but thank you, Sonia. And definitely you guys go to her YouTube channel, Sonia the World News, and check it out. All right, Bishop, go ahead.
All right. That was a really skillful question. You're right.
Yeah, he's a professional at this thing. Believe that. Yeah.
Yes, I happen to, I find Phil Schneider's story highly credible. He had some information that even me in the military, I didn't even know there was a black beret. I never heard of it. I had to call my older brother, who was at the time active duty, Lieutenant Colonel at the Pentagon, to confirm. Yeah, we got black beret. And Phil Schneider said 26 black beret got killed in that battle at Dulce, New Mexico. He also revealed that there were these strings of underground military bases, dumb bases. And now we know that they actually exist. There's video footage of them being out there. And he said that actually there's maglev trains that are moving in excess of Mach speed. And now we have those technologies. You see it in commercial industry above the ground now. But yes, and I think that, and again, he had the physical scars on his body. And he was the only one, other than I think 2 people in Canada who nobody's allowed to visit, that were there when some of those things happened. So yes, I agree. I think Phil Schneider was highly credible. And if he's gone now, but he's got videos out there, and he risked his life to expose that information. So if you're not familiar with Phil Schneider, I would encourage you to take a look. He certainly deserves it for what he's done to at least make us aware. To your second question about a breakaway civilization, I met Travis Walton a few times, and I got an autographed copy of his book. And his experience I find highly credible. Although the book and the movie, he would tell you there was a lot of things that were missing, and they took other characters and combined them down into one for the sake of the budget. But could there be a breakaway civilization? I think it's absolutely possible. If you look at situations where we look at the work of Richard Hoagland, who was President Nixon's science advisor. He's got pictures and images of things that appear to be structures on Mars and structures on the moon, physical structures, geometry that shouldn't exist. Straight lines and curves shouldn't exist. And, they don't occur, straight lines don't occur in nature. But he's got things to point to. And even Billy Carson, there's a lot of people who have information about phenomenon that indicates that there is a presence or was the presence of another civilization or is the presence of another civilization right now. And whether that's, as we understand time as in our physical reality, or if there's a dimension that exists outside of time that we just can't observe or perceive. But I think it's entirely possible that there are breakaway civilizations. And I've heard different theories about a jump room to Mars and things like that. But yes, but I think it's entirely possible.
Wow, that's a great answer there. Let me give a shout out to Rachel. She gave us a contribution on Cash App and 5 times 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. And so I can re-up the balance and then, get you some coffee and stuff too. Then we got Chad. Chad hit us up too. Appreciate you, Chad. And a shout out to you and wherever you are. You all, Dusty, Chad, Rochelle, all of you, and of course, the Rebel there, and all that have given tonight. You all are VIPs. All right, caller 3422. You are up next. And I'm going to go ahead and bring you into the show. Anyone else? Right now, we have 4 lines open. If you got a question tonight, the number's at the top of the screen, 272-222-TALK. It's going to ask you to say what your name is and where you're calling from. And then when you say it, it's going to transcribe it on the screen. So we got Sean. We're getting ready to bring you up right now out of Atlanta. So, Sean, Appreciate you waiting for Why the Big Secret with Mr. Bishop or Darrell here. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Thank you, Roderick. Thank you, Bishop. This is awesome and an honor to speak to you both.
Appreciate it.
Bishop, I had a question for you and a couple of statements. Yeah, I'm born again Christian most of my life, raised up in New York, New Jersey area. I've always had these dreams where I met somebody in my dreams, and I know I don't know them, but for some reason in my dream, I know their whole lifestyle. I know their whole past. I know their history. This has been going on all my life. And I told my mother, I grew up in a Christian household, told my mother about this. She's like, oh, you got to leave that stuff alone. But I'm not conjuring this. This is in my dream. In my dream, I meet people that I know that I don't know in real time. But in my dreams, I know their whole life. I can even hear and see my whole life with them in my dreams. And when you spoke about David Wilcox the last interview, it kind of hit home because I used to read some of his stuff about synchronicity and things like that as well. And just the whole, and I'm going to move on to that, from that to also the clairvoyancy part. Like, so in my waking days, you know, I can actually see something coming before it happens. Like when I meet somebody in real life, I can actually see behind the screen. Like, it's almost like a screen opens up and I can see what's going on in their life at the same time.
Wow.
So my question to you, and also kind of a statement, I know there's a lot of talk about DMT, ayahuasca, astral projection, and all these things to kind of help and boost these things, to help you kind of enhance the gifts that are already there. But hearing you speak the other night, when you were talking about this stuff, the dreams, and when you talked to David Wilcox, this is something that's been going on all my life. You know, and then when you start talking about clairvoyancy to the Christian household or people in your family, you think you're crazy. I don't make this stuff up. It just happens. And when you were speaking about it, you were speaking my language. So I kind of wanted to say that to you. Maybe you can expound on a little bit more about clairvoyancy. Who are the people in my dreams? Stuff like that. And I'll take that answer off there. And again, I appreciate you guys both.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Thank you for coming in. And all right, so you want to take a stab at that one? And because I think a lot of people have a lot of things in their dreams. I even had some dreams this morning. I was like, why am I seeing this stuff? Yeah. And but yeah, go ahead.
You know, I would kind of, even with this one, I would begin, you know, all those things are really possible and they occur. And I'll even give you a biblical text that I think kind of lends itself to that experience. But in 2 Corinthians, in the 12th chapter, 3rd verse, they give a description. And I just, in that particular verse, it says, he's talking about, I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up in the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out, I do not know, but God knows. So here we even have something you're just describing. I said, I know a man who in Christ 14 years ago was caught up into the third heaven, whether it was in the body or not, whether it's in the body, whether he was there physically or not, he couldn't even make the distinction. So this kind of lends itself to this astral plane, or they call it the third heaven. It's a state. What can we call it? Even Ezekiel, when he went into the seven heavens, and he talks about what he encountered in these heavens. And could that lend itself to this experience that we sometimes have as human beings in a sleeping state or a meditative state? Even in my case, you know, whether you're meditating and you see it, or you're in a dream state with a high theta wave or beta, wherever it takes to get there, to find that frequency where you can, like David Wilcox said, where you can get those points meet and you can escape physicality, is a phenomenon we don't understand. But I would think it's also curious that, you know, for several years now, I've been following some of the activities of the Dalai Lama. And many people probably aren't aware, but, you know, I don't know if he still does it, but every year at the beginning of the year, he holds a conference, and he made it a point to go and visit with little children who had these experiences, who actually have past life experiences. And some of these are well documented. A little 5, 6, 8-year-old kid talks about, I used to live in Alaska, you know, and he described these things, and his mother thought they were just really losing it until they take him to Alaska. And he says, yes, go up here, we'll make a right. And that's the farmhouse we lived in. It's a 4-bedroom house. My bedroom faces the beach. This really happened. So even the Dalai Lama, in terms of, we're looking at religious, spiritual practice context, you know, there's other people who have studied this phenomena, and it's a real phenomena. So it's just that it's so outside of our 3D reality. So the final point I would make with this is that, you know, I can speak to that experientially, just as many of you have. You have these experiences, and there's nothing in your religious practices that really tells you how to do that. but it's possible. But I would say that to the extent that, the pineal gland is that's the spiritual nature of a human being. That's our connection to that spirit domain, that spirit realm. And I would encourage all of us, just if you really want to reinforce or fortify your spiritual connection, which makes that connection possible and these other experiences for good reasons, more conducive for you, is to decalcify your pineal gland. You got to watch how much calcium you're putting in your body. I actually, for years now, I've been taking a skate liver oil, which it sounds kind of gross and it tastes kind of gross. But what it does is it helps dissolve calcium throughout your body to include on your pineal gland. And my experience has been, I don't know how much that's related to it because I've been taking it for probably 12, 13 years. So it's easier to get into that space where you want to establish that spiritual connection, and you can have some of these amazing connections. And the final point to that is I look at the Dogon tribe, as written in some of their books. They spend a lot of their time, excuse me, we spend a day a week or 2 days a week or 3 days a week on our spiritual conquest or spiritual journey. It is said of the in Mali, West Africa, and of the Dogon, that whole culture is just the reverse of Western culture. They spend 70% of their being and consciousness in the spiritual domain, and then they come back 30% to pay bills and do work. So we got to flip the script, and I hope that kind of answers your question.
All right, then we have a caller ending in 9282, Gary. He's got a good question. We'll let it come through here in just a second. And also I want to give a shout out to Sonia for the $5 cash app and as well. Right. So appreciate it. Maybe I should just not say how much it is, and because somebody else may say, whatever. But Sonia, appreciate the contribution, and whoever else. It is right there at the bottom of that screen. If you guys like this call-in future for future shows, then I will keep the service and keep it going from there. I'll bring up the number again if anyone else wants to come in before we get out of here in a few minutes. All right, so caller 9282, which is Gary, and he's out of Memphis. Let me bring him in and see and get this question in. So here we go. So Gary, you are now live on the air. Go ahead.
Hello. My question is, it's concerning Revelation when they talk about the 144,000, and I just wanted to know about is the world supposed to end by fire, and would it just be 144,000 just be saved, or would it be more people saved and stuff like that? So that's been on my thoughts, and I just want you to answer it if you can.
Well, you picked the most puzzling book in the Bible, Revelations, realizing that we're talking about visions that were expressed. So to answer the question, the 144,000, different religious practices have different ideas about exactly who those 144,000 are. So, and because I don't know, I can't answer that definitively. And I don't really want to offend their spiritual foundation, because I got a lot of friends that are counting on being one of those 144,000. And I don't know. I don't know what I can tell you my interpretation, but to share it on an audience like this, I'm not trying to really put as if I'm some definitive expert. I don't know it any more than any other theologian or anybody else who's explaining it. It's still a bit mysterious. So whether it's going to be 144,000 called out at a rapture, or if there's going to be some other event and they're going to be set up to rule, other than if we all aspire to live a lifestyle that, if that's your faith and your belief, that you would be among them. I certainly wouldn't want to be one of the ones left behind, because it's going to be some trouble according to the book of Revelations. But I think, was there a second part to that question?
The second part, because it really is not a second question, but more concerning, because I heard more people talking about the 144,000 is just people that basically chosen of God, and those that will awaken and lead the golden age, the new heaven on earth, and stuff like that. But that's basically all that I have right now.
I will say this because people ask me, and I've got some really good believing friends that are telling me, says, get ready because the rapture's coming. Jesus is coming. It's going to happen by October. And I've heard a lot of things, you know, to which I tell people that if you know the date, and if you're listening to somebody who knows the date, you know, my Bible says that no man knows the date or the hour. So I'm telling them, says if somebody's telling you that they know the date and the hour, it says either they're a liar or God's a liar. So we'll see what happens at the end of October. You know, that's just a use your own discernment. Like I said, the scriptures tells us to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, thy spirit, the soul, and thy mind. So we have that intellectual responsibility. So it's good enough for me that I did read that it says no man knows the hour. You know, I didn't ask him and he didn't tell me. So I don't know when it's coming, but whenever what is coming, the things we can do is improve our qualities. So whether it's your lifetime or a next lifetime, it was going to be 2,000 years from now, just live the best quality life that you can now, you know, and implement those tenets that, you know, they lend ourselves to that Christ-like mentality where we try to improve the conditions of life while we're here. I think that's the most important thing, not when, but the journey.
All right, Gary, thank you for coming on
Yes,
up
sir.
here with us tonight. Have a good one, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, calling ending in 9857, Paris. We're going to be bringing you up here in just a second. I'm getting ready to shut down these call lines. So if anyone else had anything they wanted to discuss, now will be the time. And I'm going to shut this down. I'm going to take it off the screen, and then anything else that comes in, I will make sure. We got a couple of calls here, but and we'll kind of go from there. So Paris, you're going to be up, and let me bring you in for your question right about now. So Paris, you're on the air with Why the Big Secret, Roderick Martin and Bishop Darrell Nicholls. Welcome to the show. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going? Well, it wasn't necessarily a question that I had. It was basically just wondering or seeing if you're interested in information in regards to inner Earth aliens. And I mean, there's just a documentary that is that I could point you guys towards that talks about a site in Bulgaria that was dug up in the 1990s, and there were psychics communicating with aliens known as the Aurora. But they also mentioned aliens that were underground, which were like more machine-like, and it kind of like explained like the depths of like Hades and hell and stuff like that. But the I don't mean to bring like advertise like another channel in here, but it was called Inner Earth Conspiracies #5, and it was by a guy named Mr. Mythos, and he gives like a pretty in-depth information about a dig that they did in Bulgaria in 1990, where they were looking for the remains of like the first human, and perhaps found it.
All right. Appreciate you, Paris, and I'm going to take you off the air, but appreciate the question and the hookup on the show. We'll check it out. So go ahead if you want, if you can respond, or we got a couple of callers too. Caller 6416 and 6711. You will be up in just a minute, and I'm going to just take off the rest of them right now and turn it off in a few seconds here. But go ahead, Bishop.
Yeah, I just say I'm not familiar with the one in Belgium, but I certainly, you know, I'll take a look at it. But I would say is in terms of Inner Earth, I think probably one of the most credible stories that I read was the story of Admiral James Byrd against Richard Byrd.
Oh yeah.
After World War II, he flew a squadron over this big hole over the was it Antarctic or the Arctic?
Antarctica.
Mm-hmm. And it was just so compelling that after the war, he was commissioned to take another group of people over there and to do an expedition. And he purportedly went to the Inner Earth, and he met and had conversation with people there and came back and briefed our leaders. But yes, look some more. I think Inner Earth is, you know, again, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that there's a lot more to it than what we're commonly being told.
Wow. All right. So real quickly, let me give another quick plug. Next week, we're going to have Reverend Michael Carter. So y'all make sure y'all get here. He's been on Ancient Aliens. He got books, Extraterrestrial and the Bible. We're going to do just an all-out ask him anything, he says. No narrative, anything. Same as you're hearing here with Bishop. You know, we can ask those questions. But he's saying, bring it. Bring it, bring it. And so, yeah, he's going to be here as well. And got a couple other guests coming up that we're working on for the show as well. So that's going to be next week, same time here. So caller 6416. Gretchen, I'm gonna bring you in, and then Vinny, you'll be next, and you're actually the last caller. And again, if you have not had an opportunity, please, I'm at a milestone. I'm just going to ask for your help. A few more 100 people, can subscribe to the Why the Big Secret YouTube channel. About to hit 6K. Nothing compared to the 250,000 here, but it is a big milestone. And so, if you could be a part of that with me, take the time, go over to Why the Big Secret YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel. Got some great videos coming out. Got a reaction video from what I call ET on the streets. I even got a new one that I'm going to post tomorrow about a 10-year-old girl. Her mother let me interview her out on the streets, and I asked her about alien abductions. You're going to see the contrasting view from a 10-year-old versus an adult, and how it was just amazing. It was just blown away. So anyway, Gretchen, I'm going to bring you on to the air. You're now here on air, Why the Big Secret, here on Forbidden Knowledge TV with Bishop Darrell Nicholls. Go ahead.
Oh, hello, Bishop. My question is, what is your take on the Mandela effect? Or I don't know if you're familiar with it. And also, there is like a few Bible changes. I don't know if you've noticed that. What's your take on that?
So what is watching us?
I think she said the Mandela
What's
effect.
your take? Correct. And there is like a few changes to the Bible, especially on the King James version. There's this verse where it's Isaiah 11:6, where it says the wolf will live with the lamb. So I was familiar with it, and I think it was the lion laying with the lamb, not the wolf.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. And a lot of people get that wrong conceptually. And there's a lot of artwork out there that lends itself to people misinterpreting that. So, yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. No doubt. And there's so many other misnomers. There's a lot of things that people say are in the Bible, but are not there. So touche on that, Isaiah 11:6. To your the initial question. What was the initial question?
The Mandela effect.
Absolutely. I believe in the Mandela effect. I think that we do, because there's plenty of empirical evidence to suggest that it's a real phenomenon. The Mandela effect, or the 100 monkey syndrome, is a matter of consciousness begins to expand. But, the ripple effect, if a feather falls here, does it affect something else there? Because we live in a universe of cause and effect. And for every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And that's just physics. That's science. That's just it just is what is. It's irrefutable evidence to suggest that. And the same kind of works with us. For every thought that we have, what does that create? For every action we take, there's an opportunity cost that we didn't take. And so that kind of ripples out. So I do believe in the Mandela effect. Even the conversation we're having here, I'm so encouraged because this conversation and all the other conversations that Roderick has hosted, they ripple out. But I think this is an important conversation. So it's got tangible value, at least for the things that I really value in terms of awareness and eliminating ignorance. And maybe see if I can play a part in moving people closer to a spiritual track that they really want to find on their own, and not necessarily narrow tracked into somebody else's agenda, because of lack of ignorance. The scripture says, for lack of knowledge, my people perish. Scripture also says, in all that getting, get ye first wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So.
All right. So thank you, Gretchen, and hopefully he answered your call, but appreciate you popping up with us tonight. All right. So the last one is going to be Vinny, and I'm going to bring you up 6711 in just a few minutes. Anyone else, just say that I want to appreciate each one of you for being here. And if, like I said, if you have not done it already, subscribe to this channel, of course, and then and also like the video as well. And then, of course, share it as well. And then, of course, if you want to support the channel, I'm also going to reach out and see if one of these weeks we can get the greatness of Billy here to go through a couple of things, and maybe he can answer a few questions live. And I'll reach out to him in that. In fact, I plan on trying to get him and Elizabeth together here, talk about relationships when it gets down to this extraterrestrial thing, because I think there's a lot of people have or in relationships that they can't really talk about their experiences, and I think that's a real big thing that needs to be talked about when it comes down to that. And what do you think? Do you ever think about that as well, Bishop? Or
I'm sorry, I was lost in thought reading the notes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So where I was going with that was I'm going to try to get Billy and Elizabeth here, because one of the things I look at is that some people are in marriages, with the husbands and wives, girlfriend, boyfriends. But when it comes down to them sharing not only their ideology, when it comes down to how they feel and see extraterrestrials or whatever is in Bible, or had an experience, that seemed to be one area that they do not share. It's like, it causes a lot of frictions in the relationships.
I've been there, and it is this difficult spot to be in. I even had someone I was seriously dating, but we have to have some challenges. And the question came up because my trajectory just was so different from what the expectations was. The question says, well, are we equally yoked?
Yeah.
I don't know. But again, it's just like, we're all, everybody who is listening, we got someplace we're trying to get to. And we're all down here in the best, doing our best to trying to figure it out. But my path may not be the same as your path, and vice versa. And it doesn't mean that one's wrong or one's right. They're just different, and we're designed. But sometimes that does cause conflict. And, until you get on the other side of it, you can't see how ridiculous it was that you had a lot more in common. But I just took the A train and you took the B train. But, I saw you
going the same direction, just on different tracks. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. Vinny, we're going to bring you into the call now. And Vinny, you're here live with us. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Doing all right.
All right. My question is about energy. For the last 2 or 3 years, I've been going through a difficult situation, but the last year has been amazing. This feeling that I get over my body is just, I just really can't explain it. And I really was wondering if it was real or not. It was in all of my head, but I started to notice the people around me, I could tell by their reactions that they feel this. And also things around me. I mean, just weird things I can notice the effect of the spirit or whatever it is affecting physical things around me as well. So I just want to know, is there a way I can find like-minded people, or do I suppose to try to find a like-minded people? I'm just so confused, and I just want to know, what do you think about this? What do you think I should do from here?
Now, are you talking about look, are you talking about relationships, or like somebody you're dating? Or I know it's for him, but boy, if you get ready to step on
no.
You get ready to step on a brick, boy, if you get ready to go there.
No,
but go ahead.
No, my brothers. I'm talking about this energy.
Okay.
This energy that I feel within my body. And when I've been researching it, it was about I came up with chakras and a Merkaba and things like that. And I can definitely tell you it's 100% real. And when I listen to some brothers talk, I kind of seem like you all experience the same things, but I can't seem to find anyone out here in my world that actually feel and see the things and know the things that I know now. So am I in search for a spiritual tribe, or I'm just really confused and I don't know which direction to go from here?
I would say you're in a good space. You're in a really good place that you already identified what you're experiencing. And I think it's just stay true to that. And I think, whatever it is that you're exuding, you're going to attract more of that to you. So just be open-minded. For me, it was going to Los Angeles and exposing myself to these conferences, and I made these connections, but the vibe is so crazy there. I mean, I get grounded, and then I go to places, sacred sites like Serpent Mound, Ohio here. It's on a vortex, but it's like going through a spiritual car wash. I mean, literally, that was my first experience there. All the junk I had when I went in it, and I saw this field of patterns, and it walked with me for like 20, 30 feet. And when I came out the other side, all that stuff was gone, you know, but I found a tribe there. He actually led me there, but now I go there like 3 or 4 times a year. And I you know, that's my family. And I go in there and I can get grounded. And it's a family of like-minded people that I connect with. So I think just you follow your intuition. And I think whatever you're looking for, it's already there in front of you. You just got to recognize it when it shows up.
All right, Toy.
Appreciate that. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
All right, appreciate you coming on and appreciate you waiting as well. All right, so that was our first experience of using the new call-in number and stuff. What do you think about that? Audience first, put your comments in the comment section. What do you think about the call-in feature? Would you like to see more of that as we bring guests in the future? And of course, you know, Bishop will be back with us from time to time anyway, and all of those things. So let me know what you guys think from there. And then Bishop, what do you think as far as some of the callers? I saw that there was, when he was just telling his last story, there was a few people saying they feel that they've been in the same situations. And I think, you know, belonging is a magical thing for humans. And I think we all want at some point to feel part of the tribe itself. So what are your thoughts?
You know, I love the engagement.
Okay.
You know, there's a comedic saying that says, you know, what is, you know, think about why are we here and what are we? But there's comedic saying that says that we are only human beings through other human beings. So we can only really appreciate this experience because of our relationships with other human beings. You know, they say a dog is a man's best friend, but what does that say about a culture where a dog is a man's best friend? You know, so I like the engagement where we're dealing with each other, you know, heart to heart, mouth to mouth, and we're having genuine, authentic engagement, you know, because the truth is, I mean, it's a great journey that we're here for. You know, as I said last week, you know, the existence doesn't give us answers. It just gives us different methods of investigating itself. And it's through this dialogue, I think, and this talking, you know, that we you know, so the Bible says, you know, scripture, ancient wisdom, you know, as iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. And because none of us is smarter than all of us, I love it when we get together and work it out. You know?
All right. Eventually, you know, we'll get someone out there who is pretty dependable to be our call-in screener. So it'll be someone who will answer those calls and they can talk to the person and kind of type up a little bit what they're talking about versus using this auto thing. We had a few people try to hang up on it, but if they try to skip it, that AI system is just incredible. It'll just know what to do from there. So Bishop, I really appreciate you being here. I know we got a lot of things that we're going to be talking about in the future. We're going to do our next show probably, or some conversations. I'm going to do a panel probably. I might try to do it this Friday. We'll do that on Why the Big Secret, unless, you know, Billy give us a little more airtime. And of course, he probably say, hey, Rod, you can do it. You can do it. You got access to it. So, you know, but if not, we'll do it on Why the Big Secret Friday night. Get a couple of more people, some panels, and really go after deep in some extraterrestrial talk as well from there. Is there any word of wisdom that you want to share with the audience as well as, you know, from there?
Well, just one thing I want to talk, just maybe I can share and put a little kudos out there for my Iranian brothers and sisters, our Iranian brothers and sisters that are going through what they're going through. Okay. And it's a challenge, everybody. I wear a black little sweatband, but I do that just to commemorate, just to show some solidarity of what they're going through. And I would just ask anybody else, it doesn't take much to just show some support. I was in a clubhouse room with them last week, and I was really shocked, surprised to hear them talking about sharing their stories of what they're going on real time, because women don't want to have to wear this hijab, and they're suffering for it and being brutalized and murdered. So that's my way of telling them kudos. But they told me that even during Black Lives Matter, when we were going through it here, they were marching in Iran, protesting for us here. And that just really touched my heart. I said, the least I can do is do that. And the last notion I'll leave with that, and it's because it reminded me of something that Dr. King had once said when he was considering what had gone on with the Jews and his methods of nonviolent direct action. He simply said this, that maybe we were too limited in its application. And he said that what if we had by the millions gone into the streets beside the Judas, scrubbed the sidewalks, wearing those stigmatizing yellow armbands by the millions? And he said that maybe a new form of mass resistance to the Nazi regime may have developed, and Germany may never have become totalitarian. And the extermination of 6 million Jews and millions of other war dead may have been averted simply by wearing an armband. So I'm hoping here that maybe this little armband or something like that, just a silent show of solidarity, doesn't cost anything, but maybe it'll form a new form of mass resistance and improve their conditions, as well as the conditions where there's violence anywhere in the world,
Gotcha.
Africa, Ukraine, Russia. So just a kudos to them, and just an idea.
All right. So appreciate you. And let me end this side of the fence here on my call here. All right. So Bishop, stick around a little bit in the back. You and I'll talk after the show. Right. Let me get my final words here and we'll go from there. Okay. All right. Appreciate you. So there you go. You guys heard it again tonight, back by popular demand, was Bishop Nicholls. And I hope, again, being a little more interactive tonight will give you guys some, the balancement, and especially for some of you who, maybe, got your questions answered. And I do appreciate the ones who didn't call with the challenge of everything, because again, we're all here learning, and it's all something that we are trying to put in place. So in the meantime, I want you to, again, if you have not subscribed to, Forbidden Knowledge TV, now is the time to do it. Share this video, come back afterwards and post your comments, positive comments, if you have any that you would like to post. Like the video, share the video. Then you have an opportunity to hop over to Why the Big Secret YouTube channel and subscribe to the channel. Got a lot of good content for you and everything else. I like to leave each and one of you with these words. Your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. It is time to think why. Let's go beyond the narrative. My job here is to give you enough information that you can read, something that you can hear, something that you can see, to awaken your curiosity to the possibility that we're not alone in this universe, and you can go the rest of the way yourself. And I think that'll be a journey that you would enjoy, a journey that you would positively can take others with you on the ride to that. So I'm Roderick Martin. It's been a plum, pleasing pleasure, as well as a privilege serving you tonight. And I'm going to get you guys out of here. And don't forget to support the channel. If you like, you can do so. And we'll see you next week. Real quickly, this guy here, this gentleman here, Reverend, is going to be here, Michael Carter. And he's saying, bring it, bring it, bring it. And we'll do that just it. So with that being said, let me get us all out of here and see y'all next week.